Hello, F2 Fan 5000 here. Recently, Rafael Villagomez completed the F2 grid by being confirmed with VAR. So because of that, it's time to make the 2026 F2 predictions video. And unfortunately, I don't really see a lot of hope if you want to see a championship battle. But we've got some interesting drivers to talk about. So first, I want to talk about the potential championship battle. I think that Rafael Camara is the clear favourite, and it's possible that he will absolutely dominate this year. We know that the team that he's joined, Invicta Racing, is is in fine form. They've won the last two Drivers and Constructors Championships in a row. And unlike 2024, 2026 is the third season of this new car. So I don't see any surprises coming with a new regulation. I don't believe the order is going to be changed too much. So we could be looking at could be a fairly straightforward championship for Rafael Camara. There's a couple of options where that doesn't happen. So firstly, there's drivers that are coming up the ranks from F3 to F2 with Camara, such as Nikola Solov at Campos, Mari Boyer at Prema, Martinius Stenson there swaps from High Tech to Rodin. They're the main ones, and I don't think any of these drivers can defeat Camara. I think that what we saw last year in F3 shows that they're just not, either they're not at a stage where they're ready to beat him over a season, or they're never going to be there. And there's an interesting variation of ages in this year's F2 grid. I think it's a bit older than it was before, but I feel like the upshot is that some of these drivers have been around for a while, and they've sort of more or less proved that they're not really at that elite level, that they're just going to take an F2 championship. So yeah, a lot of drivers born in 2004, so they're getting towards 22. They've all either been in F2 or F3 for a while now, so we know a lot about them. We've also got a couple of drivers coming in that are a bit older for various reasons. So we already have Ritomo Miata, the Super Formula champion from 2023, entering his third season, this time with High Tech. And he's being partnered by IndyCar star Colton Herta in a much publicised move, which is meant to get Herta the super license points. And we also have sports car star Nicolas Varone. I tried to pronounce that the correct way. Is it Varone? I'm not sure, but he's coming in with Van Amersfoort Racing. So these three drivers, especially Herta and Varone, but also Miata, now that he's in High Tech, they're going to be very interesting to watch. But at the same time, I don't see them as championship contenders, because the level is very high. If you've been through the European, feeder Formula Series, that level is very high. We're talking Frecker, or Frecht, now that the Alpine has been replaced by Toyota. So Formula Regional European Championship, Italian F4, FIA, F3. If you've come through that and you're winning, you're the best of the best, right? That's very high level. And I think there's a slight disbelief amongst some people that they think that someone can come in from another series, a highly rated series like Formula E or IndyCar or Super Formula, and compete with the drivers that have been through that meat grinder that is the junior formula in Europe. But I highly doubt that. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle for both of those drivers, but I could be proved wrong, and I hope I am. I think Colton Herta definitely, he was part of the European, feeder series for a little while there, and he did well. So maybe he's got something that he can compete for wins this year. But I think when it comes to the championship, if anyone's going to bother Kamara, I've only got three options. So the first, and I think most likely option, is Alex Dunn. He's about 20 years old now. He has a year of experience in F2 from last year. He was held back by penalties and all this sort of stuff, getting involved in incidents. And hopefully this year, the underlying pace shines through and he can get the results that he really deserves. I think it's highly possible, but that Alex Dunn could challenge Kamara for the title or even take the title himself. But the thing about Dunn is he can be a magnet for incidents, and I think that might hold him back. And Roden, they've had a couple of issues the last couple of years with, especially last year with technical faults and stuff, and Alex getting disqualified because of a technical problem or a plank, and Invicta just don't do that, they're always on the ball. They always cross their I's and dot their T's, So that's Invicta, whereas Rodin I'm less convinced of. But, Alex Dunn has a lot of raw speed. If anyone's going to take it to Kamara, I think it's Dunn. I'm not so sure about Nikola Solov. Campos have been very strong of late, but I don't think Nikola Solov plus Campos can really challenge Rafael Kamara plus Invicta. I think Campos have been guilty of making some unnecessary mistakes in the last couple of years, especially when Hudger was there. I think if Hudger couldn't really fight convincingly for the title in 2024, I don't see how Solov will do it this year. He's also the youngest driver on the grid, isn't he? Or one of the youngest. Even though it's crazy. Solov is a rookie this year. He did a couple of races last year. He's older than... How much older is he than... It's about 8 months older than Arvid Lindblad, but I think he's the youngest driver on the grid this year, on the F2 grid. So, but... there's not many. Yeah, he's the youngest driver. And I think Stenson is the second youngest driver. And everyone else is born 2005 or before. So slightly older grid, which I think is a good thing. I don't think it's good to be chucking 17, 18-year-olds in F2 and going, you must win it on your first year or you're not good enough for F1. To me, that's a little bit, losing the plot a bit. But it has happened, recently, which is unfortunate. But anyway, we're getting away from that. I think, as an outside chance, if someone's going to challenge Kamara, we could be looking at Joshua Dirksen, his teammate. That sounds unlikely, but Dirksen is that driver that's never really been in a top team in these feeder series. He's been in the now defunct Arden team in Formula Regional, and then he drove for AIX the last couple of years. And considering that he was driving for AIX, he has had some remarkable results. Now, the low points, how much that is down to AIX and how much that is down to Dirksen is questionable. And we might see another side of Dirksen, but he's just a big unknown for me. If we'd seen him in F3 at Prema or Trident or Campos, one of the top teams, we'd seen him in F3, then I feel he's more of a known quantity. The teams that he's been in and his route to F2 is kind of different, so I feel there's a lot of unanswered questions on how good Joshua Dirksen really is. And I think there's a potential for Invicta as a team to unlock that potential, because this team seems to be really good at working with drivers. But of course that's not always the case. So I think there's potential there for a surprise, but I wouldn't bet on it. I would say it's less likely to happen that way. The only other driver that I really feel might have a shot this year is Martinius Stenson, the driver that Chris McCarthy absolutely loves to mispronounce. Well, it's Martinius Stenson. No, it's Stenson. Though last year in the first race at Albert Park, he pronounced it at Stenson, and then after that he went back to Stenson. So I don't know what's going on there, but I feel like this Martinius is that driver that when he really wants to, he can pull the magic out. He's going to pull the rabbit out of the hat. When it happens, sometimes it just clicks with him, like 2023 Formula Regional, the first half of the season he was imperious. He was leading Andrea Kimi Antonelli, and then he went to F3, and in the first year I would say he's a little bit anonymous, and then the second year it's really hard to judge because he's come fifth and he benefited a lot from the reverse grid poles. Well, not for reverse grid pole, but being on the second or third on the reverse grid. But then again, he scored all but 1 point of the high-tech team that year. So it's a little bit difficult to judge where he's at. And then in the 3 rounds last year, when he joined Trident, he looked like he could take the Trident where the other drivers like Lawrence Van Hoopen and Sami Megatunov and Max Esterson, they were never going to do with the Trident what Stenson could do. When he replaced Omri Cordell at Rodin, he looked kind of average. So I don't know, but I think that there's a possibility. I don't know if Rodin is the right team for him, but I suppose there's a possibility that Stenson can find himself again and be a championship contender. I think it's highly, highly unlikely he will take the title, but I think Rodin are in a good spot, especially with their long run pace. Their race pace is very strong, so I'd expect that he can come back through the field. I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting quite a few sprint race podiums. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah, as I said, last year in F3 he was very good at consolidating a good position in the sprint race. And as we've seen, sometimes he just looks incredible, but then other times he looks really average. So I don't know what to expect. But looking at this grid, outside of that, well, there's 2 drivers, I would say at least 2 drivers who could be title contenders. if they pull their finger out their arse, right? Especially, ever since he's stepped up from Formula Regional to Formula 3, Dino Bogdanovic has been threatening to do something amazing, only he's never done it. He's always been lacklustre. Well, not always. Now and then he shows this amazing speed, and then he goes back to being ordinary. Did this in F3 for 2 seasons with Prema, back when Prema were the best team in F3. And in last year with High Tech, he was getting beaten most of the year by Luke Browning, only to sort of be reincarnated in the last couple of races at High Tech and was driving brilliantly. So I think Dino Bogdanovic has to wake up to himself and finally deliver on the promise. And I think there's sort of a driver that's always been there with him is Gabriele Mini. He's another one. I think MP are on the up. Richard Verschoor has shown that you can get wins with MP. Even Oliver Goethe can get pole positions with MP. And Goethe is another one. He's come up the ranks with Bogdanovic, Mini. He's drove dreadfully last year, if I'm being honest, but showed flashes of absolute pace. So these 3 drivers, if they pull their finger out their arse, then maybe we can get some sort of competition for the title. This is F2. The right setup, the right lap in qualifying can change everything. It doesn't have to be... Oh, wow, that's yummy. These 3 drivers on their day, to me, I can't see any reason why a Bogdanovic or a Mini or even a Goethe can't be as fast as Rafael Camara. Based on F4, Formula Regional, these drivers have always been strong, they've always been fast, and they've shown flashes of that since they joined F3 and in F2. But, I don't, since they've joined F2, they've largely, all 3 of them have failed to deliver on the promise. Now, people talk about engines and all that, but, that affects everyone at different stages during an F2 season, I suppose. Last year we saw, a lousy crash from Bogdanovic at Monte Carlo. I can't blame that on the engine, if you're a really good driver, you should be able to make it show at a track like that. You should be getting... I know it's a tough one, but as I say, MP, this is a team that's been on the rise since the change to ground effects cars. Between Mini and Goethe, I can't see why they can't start to win races and regularly get on the podium. There's no real reason why. Dams have been a very solid team, always near the front. Walensky's a good driver, but Bogdanovic, he's really got to start delivering. So these 3 drivers to me are key to if this year is going to be a tense battle for the championship, or if it's going to be a fairly walk away, easy run of the mill for Rafael Camara like F3 last year. Either these 3 drivers finally start delivering on their promise, or that's the end of the line for their F1 dream, honestly. I think Goethe, it's probably too late. He's very disappointing last year, very disappointing. For many, it's probably too late too, but, I think he still has Alpine links. And if he, wins the title this year, then surely there's no reason why he can't be in the conversation for a seat in 2027. Bogdanovic is another one, He has Ferrari links and they're still supporting him. So he's going to want to beat Rafael Camara, He can't just let Camara come in as a rookie, F2 rookie, and beat Bogdanovic, who's going to be in his 2nd full season. He can't let that happen. Other than that, I don't really see... I mean, this is not a really stacked grid of talent like 2024 was. You know, not to take anything away from the drivers near the front. There's about 5 drivers or 6 drivers near the front of this field that I think all of them have potential to be F1 drivers. But going back through the field, there's 2 issues, right? Some of the drivers aren't that strong, and some of the teams are on the wobble, right? See, I'm very disappointed, for a start, that Mari Boyer is with Prema and Noel Leon got the Campos racing gig. To me, that's wrong. Mari Boyer showed that he has a higher ceiling than Noel Leon, and he should have gone to Campos, and Noel Leon should have gone to Prema. Well, I feel really bad that Boyer is at Prema, because Prema are absolutely on the way down. They're struggling with this new ground effects car, and I think he's one of the more talented drivers there in the F2 midfield, and I think he could be competing for podiums on a regular basis if he was at Campos. As for Leon, we've seen great things from him in 2024, but the fact that he was regularly outqualified by the less experienced and younger Ugo Ugachukwu last year at F3 level, I think is putting the writing on the wall, and I think he's just come up with a lot of funding to go for Campos, and I don't know how that's going to work out for him or for Nikola Solov. And Solov, I think, is possibly the overlooked / underrated driver here. You know, it sort of doesn't look good when you can say that he's been in F3 for 3 years, and only in his 3rd season he's finished 2nd, but he's incredibly young when he joined F3. He's, 16 years old. This is, as I said, he's the youngest driver on the grid. I definitely expect good things from him, winning a couple of feature races, being in the title hunt for a while, but I think it's going to be an uphill battle. As I said, Rafael Camara, supremely confident, Invicta, top form. But there's still a couple of drivers that are big question marks. As I said, Colton Herta, that's a really big question mark. I don't know how that's going to go. We've seen with Kalle Rovanperä in Formula Regional Oceania that sometimes you're just missing the last couple of tenths to compete with these fast young drivers from the European feeder series, like, Frecker and that. Roman Belinsky is a good addition to Dams, but I'm not sure how often he's going to be on the podium. He might surprise me, but I wouldn't put a bet on it. Prema, I said Boyer, and Sebastian Montoya, he impressed last year, but I think it's an uphill battle with that team the way it is, with their financial problems, with the ART. They've been struggling, and I think their lineup, I think Tazanapol in Trafuvazak is a good driver on his day, but I don't know if he has what it takes to lead a struggling Formula 2 team out of the hovel that they've found themselves in. And Kush Miney is Kush Miney. I feel he'll be irrelevant completely. Van Amersfoort, Rafael Villagomez can pull a surprise. And Villagomez working with Verone, that could be a good part. Considering some of the lineups and the state of some of the other teams like ART, I can see VAR moving forward in the Constructors' Championship standings. I don't have much to say about Trident with Van Hoopen and John Bennett. It could be okay. But I think one team clearly is at the bottom of the barrel, and that's AIX. Scottish driver Cian Shields needs no introduction. And, he's not a terrible driver, but he's always at the back. And I don't think Emerson Fittipaldi Jr. is going to be... I don't know, it's such a strange choice of driver. You know, I don't see why... I'm so confused why Emerson Fittipaldi Jr. is in F2 and Brad Benavides, who's in his mid-20s, is in F3. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. It's almost as if AIX don't want to score any points this year. I just don't see this team doing anything. Of course, they might score the odd point now and then, but I think they'll easily finish last in the Constructors' Championship. I think ART are going to struggle. I think Trident are going to struggle. Probably I'd put ART below Trident. I think Kushmini is not improving as a driver. You know, and sometimes with these F2 teams, once they become a top team, people with money buy the seats at the team, and then they start sliding back down the order. And I hate to say it, it's potentially that could happen to High Tech. Rito Momiyata's struggled to find his spark in F2 the last 2 seasons. We've seen a couple of flashes, but nothing more than that. And Colton Herter is a big unknown. So, you know, it's a tight field in F2, so High Tech might have a very good season. They might be able to unlock the potential of Miyata. They might be able to help Colton Herter reach his absolute best, but by the same token, it's possible that they both struggle to match the pace of these young chargers. And it's possible that High Tech, having been 4th in 2024, and I think 3rd last year or something, or 2nd, isn't it? I think, yeah, they're 2nd last year, right? So they're one of the top teams recently. Paul Aaron made a title charge in 2024. Omri Cordell was scoring points, but now it's possible they slide back down the order. I think Invicta potentially have the best lineup, but Roden might also have the best lineup. I think it's very close. I think MP have a strong lineup, just depending on... MP Motorsport have a very strong lineup depending on how much they can unlock the potential of those 2 drivers. I think Prema have a good lineup. It's just Prema are in the doldrums at the moment, you know, with their IndyCar and their financial struggles and all the personnel changes. Other than that, I'm not really... Dams have a good lineup as well. I think Belinsky will be a good backup to Bogdanovich, but... yeah, the other teams I'm just not as keen on. I think Soloff can have quite a few strong races. Noel Leon might be able to impress us. Remember 2024 when he's getting podiums in the VAR. Other than that, I really can't see these teams or these drivers really having much of a chance to make much of an impression. But yeah, the championship's not far around the corner. Can't wait for it. Really excited. Formula 2!